Welcome back, Squids. Today we're going to talk about this bike. This is the Honda NC750X. If you follow the channel for some time, you know that I am a big fan of this bike. And I've had 4 of these, including this one. So I've had 2 NC700s, that's the old version. And then I've had 2 NC750s. 2 manual, 2 DCTs. And there's a reason people should take a look at this bike a little bit more closely than they do in the United States. In Europe, they are some of the most popular ones, and we're going to talk about that today in this video. So let's talk about the NC700 and NC750X. This particular bike is not a traditional bike by any means. It's NC, it stands for New Concept by Honda. In a way, it was designed after the BMW F650 Scarver. That's that weird, funky bike that they also didn't have a gas tank here. That one was actually much more of a newer concept than this one. But Honda did really well because, you know, if you look around, there's no Scarvers around. They have come and they have gone. They did not stick around. I do know a guy that has one, but they're rare. These bikes, like I mentioned, they are extremely popular in Europe. When I was in Europe, I was like looking at bikes to buy because that's what I do. And I noticed that these bikes are expensive. And there's a reason they're expensive. First of all, in Europe, they value Hondas quite a bit, because they have that reputation for reliability, and that's something that they really like. When you go there, you just have a bunch of garbagey cars from Peugeot and Renault, Citroën, Fiat, all garbage. Okay, maybe not full, complete garbage, but when you go to a Honda, Hondas are extremely expensive. Any Honda car, they are just not anywhere to be found. So they're much more expensive. Japanese imports are expensive. Toyota, Hondas. And another big issue is that gas in Europe is extremely expensive. You're talking about $6 to $7 per gallon. You know, they go by the liter, but you know, it's really expensive. And you feel it. You feel it. Like you almost don't even want to ride because it's just so darn expensive. At $6 for some of those people that live there, not everybody, but it is golden china. You know what? I'm going to go and get this one. Why not? When you live there, it's not like you're making what a person in America makes. There they make much less money. So and by the way, cars and vehicles in Europe are generally much more expensive. I don't know why. And people keep them much longer than they do here in the United States. Here we have like a 4-year cycle where people keep cars and they sell them. It's the same thing with bikes. You know, they're regarded more as toys. And back to this bike. This bike is not regarded as a toy in Europe. This is a work vehicle. It's a work vehicle because it's incredibly reliable, durable, and drifty. Most of my riding career has been commuting, this sort of thing. I live in a busy area. You know, I used to commute to DC every single day. And I did that when I was riding regular 6-speed transmission bikes. But this particular one is a DCT, and it makes riding much easier in traffic. So this bike is really like one of the better commuters, and especially in the United States where commuters are not really sought after by anybody, these things, you can buy them really cheap. You're talking about, for a NC700, I have bought my NCs for about $2,000. And these particular 750s, they are maybe like $4,000, $5,000. Then there's the newer ones that maybe 5,500. So they're bargains. But today I was driving, I was at a red light, and this guy pulled up to the left of me, stopped at the red. Luckily he stopped at the red, and then he just ran the red light. And I was thinking, yeah, I've seen this a lot. I've tried to tell everybody on this channel about people doing this, and nobody believes me. So here you go. Here's proof that people are doing this everywhere. They're running red lights. I've seen so many of them. No, I'm not doing $3 for an extra 4 miles. Ridiculous. This engine is unlike any other engine. It makes power right down low. So it's very well suited for slow moving, commuting type of traffic, because the power is down low and it doesn't make crazy horsepower. It doesn't rev high either. It's a low revving bike. You know, a lot of people go like, oh yeah, it's like a bigger CB500X. No, it's not. It has nothing to do with it. This bike is weird and quirky, and that's why I like it. It's the weirdest. You know, Honda makes that once in a while. They'll make a quirky bike that's really cool. You know, they had the original Africa Twin. They make the Grom. They make the Ruckus. Honda does that a lot. They make weird bikes. This is another super weird bike. People describe the engine as a Honda Fit cut in half, and you know, there's some truth to that. Of course, Honda made a bunch of changes to the engine, but even when you look at the orientation of the engine, it's low in the frame. It's like scooter-like low. The new scooters, it's the same sort of configuration, except this is a twin cylinder. And here people call it the frunk because there is no gas tank. The gas tank is actually under the seat. I'm actually sitting on the tank. You have to open up the rear seat and fill up that way. And then this thing has got 17-inch wheels, both front and rear. Good brakes. It's got a large rotor up front. It stops pretty well. It rides well. It goes around corners well. My biggest complaint is that when it comes to riding characteristics, the suspension on this is one of the worst I've ever seen. All my NCs have had these extremely harsh front. And for a commuter bike, you would expect it to have soggier budget suspension, but the suspension is quite good if you are going around corners. But this is not that type of bike. It's not the type of bike that goes around corners, so it's confusing why they would make the suspension so stiff, especially in the front. And the reason I mentioned that is that when you hit a ripple on, say, a big highway like 495, there's like little ripples. It's jarring. It's so jarring that it feels dangerous. This bike is not fast, but it is quick. Off the line, it will take off quickly, especially with the DCT. And I think this bike lends itself well to DCT. You know, I had an Africa Twin DCT. I didn't like that as much. I preferred the raw, you know, style of riding that a manual transmission gives me. This one, because it is a commuter, if you're going to use it as that, get the DCT. It just gives you a little bit more weight and a little bit more maintenance, but the engine is the same. It's a reliable bike. Here's another thing. You know, the BMW's Carver had all of these tricks and things you could put in the trunk, like speakers, bags. This one doesn't really have that. You open up the trunk this way, and I usually keep it open because I'm charging. So you basically don't have any great accessories for it. It does have these holes here on the top that you can use to strap a bag, and also you can fit a full-size helmet inside this top frunk. Another benefit of this frunk is that the battery and the tools are actually in it. So it's like right over there, so the battery is like low to the front, easy to reach. That's why I have my accessories plugged into the front, because You don't have to run a lot of wires to run your accessories, heated grips, phone, whatever. They should have taken a playbook from BMW. Speaking of BMW, the gas, you basically take the key here and you put it here. Here's another complaint. Why not just have like a button here like they do for some of these scooters? 2013 Honda PCX had that. You know, you turn the key to the on position, the seat position, you push a button, it pops up the seat because it's on a cable. This, you have to remove the key, put it here, and then twist it. And I don't know, if you open up the trunk, drop your key in there, you're going to be hurting because you have to remove everything to get to this whole latch. Of course, my favorite thing about this bike is the incredible MPGs. You are talking about 60, 70, 80, even 95 miles to the gallon if you baby it. You're talking about 150cc, 200cc scooter-like mileage. I don't know any other bike that's capable. And here's the thing, whenever I post that and I talk about it, people go like, oh yeah, my V-Strom 650 gets 70 miles per gallon. No, you don't. No, you don't. You might get 55, maybe 60, but this thing routinely gets over 60. Like right now, I'm averaging 57.9 and I'm doing stop and go delivery. This thing is incredible. If you just use it as a commuter, you're gonna get like 80 miles to the gallon, which is really kind of incredible. That gets this sort of mileage and is not a scooter is incredible, because one of the downsides of getting a small engine scooter, you're talking about rebuilds. A guy like Wilser in California, he just bought a Yamaha X-Max 300 and he already has 17,000 miles. In about 60,000 miles, that engine is going to be a goner. You're going to have to get a rebuild. It's a great bike, but they do wear out. You know, it's a Japanese bike. You're not going to get any issues compared to the Chinese stuff, but once it gets into high mileage, he's actually hitchhiking. Good for you. Once you get into high mileage, you're talking about engine rebuilds, buying new engines, and that's a shame. And that's why you want a larger displacement engine, because it's going to be more durable. It's going to last longer, especially for a guy that rides as much as that guy. So bigger engine means you could put more miles. You know, you could put a lot of miles on a small engine. I put 87,000 miles on my Ninja 250 and it's capable, but you're going to have more issues down the road. Get a 700cc bike like this, you get slightly lower gas mileage, and it's going to last 100, 150,000 miles. That brings me to another thing. This bike is easy to work on. In a world where bikes have gotten complex, with ABS systems that fail and everything, the engine on this is easy to access. You don't have to remove anything other than the radiator. You can adjust the valve simply without any shims. You can change the coolant without removing anything. The forks can come out without any plastic. To me, that is an amazing thing, having a bike that you can work on yourself. It's like an old school thing. Look, I know it's not the best looking bike in the world, but this is what a standard bike is these days. So for me, I like the adventure style. Now I do wish that this bike had a 19-inch front wheel. I think it's really lacking. It's not like it would make it that much better, but a lot of times with adventure bikes, it's the sizzle. You know, the BMW GS has got a 19 front wheel, the V-Strom 19, the new CB500 has got a 19. Why not this one? I think the 19 is not there for going over logs off-road. It's more for going over speed bumps. At least for me, I kind of like that idea. And yeah, this would make a really good adventure bike if it had a few modifications. So when it comes to resale, this bike has no resale in the United States. People don't like it. People don't know about it. People don't respect it, even though it's a brilliant bike. There's a couple of things, you know, it's bland styling from Honda. Honda does great when they want to create something unique like the Africa Twin, the Ruckus, but this bike is bland. It's not as bland as a Transalp, but it is bland. And I wish that they made it just a little bit more aggressive looking. You know, I know that they're trying to appeal to commuters and making a commuter bike, but look, you sell the sizzle, not the steak. That's why the GS is so popular. It's not a fast bike. You know, I haven't even tested the top speed. It's useless. If you're going to get this bike for top speed, don't buy it, because that's not the bike for you. It's a low horsepower, easy kind of cruiser like speed. It's quick off the line, but then it tapers off. It makes all its power down low. There's like nothing really high up. I did ride with sport bikes a while ago, and it was a VFR 800, some CBR or whatever, and those bikes are much more fun. So if you are thinking about getting something for fun, this is not really it. You know, this is a workhorse, a proven workhorse. You sit up straight, mirrors easy to see, it's simple. You know, this is like a Toyota Camry, actually closer to a Prius. You know, it's a Prius. The Prius is not exciting, but it's quiet, it's smooth, it's efficient, and that's why a lot of people get this bike. You know, now here's another downside among a few. This thing has a chain drive. Now, why is that bad? Well, if it's a new concept and a chain drive isn't really that new, can you give us a belt drive on it? Can you give us a shaft drive, please? A commuter? You know, like, chains are messy. I know that chains have improved, but I don't care about that. I want something cool, like you know, a shaft drive is the best. If you're going to keep bikes for a long time, shaft drives are the best. Of course, you would lose some efficiency. I don't care. I'll take 5 miles to the gallon less for having a bike that is seriously better. I like that. Having a shaft drive, oh man, if they made a good shaft drive, I would be so into it. The Honda Ascot had a shaft drive. That was a 500. The NT700V Deauville had a shaft drive. You know, you're talking about shadows with shaft drives, Nighthawks. Honda can give us this. They keep going, oh, but it's less efficient. Bullshit. You basically just want to make more money because chain drives are easy to make. That's all it is. A bunch of cruisers with cooties. You know, I met a couple of people. They're like, hey, let's go riding. And then they're like, oh no, let's not do back roads. And I'm like, yeah, lost interest. Please go away. Why would I want that? Trying to see if there's some deliveries here. The shopping center is pretty full, but nothing. I had to take these muffs off so you can see the controls. It's cold, so I have these muffs that protect me a little bit. But that's the bike. That's the NC700X, 750X, I should say. But it's a good bike. It's the adventure styling commuter, which is not something you see every day. You know, both 17-inch wheels. For me, I would prefer a 19-inch. Stock exhaust, chain drive. This is the DCT version. You can tell because it's wider at the base here than the manual. So you do have a little bit more weight, and you also have an additional filter you have to change. So a little bit more maintenance to it. Also, the interesting thing about this engine is the the orientation, of course, the way it behaves, the characteristics are completely different on this bike. But look how easy it is to service that engine. It's right here. Boom. Move the radiator a bit, you get access to that front cover. Horn is right here. You do have a little plastic bash plate, and that's more than enough. I don't feel like I need it. It would be nice to have crash guards, because the previous owner did drop it. See that? And traditional forks, I think I do have them a little bit too high. I'm gonna have to fix that. But traditional forks, it would be nice to have upside down forks, but it's no big deal. One-sided rotor with ABS. This rotor is massive, and it is quite good. The brakes are on it are quite good. You have the beak, which is, you know, that tells you that it's up for some adventures. 17-inch in the rear. I'm not going to pull this out, but that's where the gas tank is. And to open that up, you take the key out, you know, turn that, it opens up the seat. So you have to get off the bike to fill it. I wish that Honda put the gas tank off to the side, because that's annoying. If you go on tour, you have to remove all of this. If you're doing this like I am, you have to remove it. It's annoying. Nobody wants that. The windshield, I made a mess. I painted it thinking it would look cool. Looks worse. But it's got LED lighting. That's what you get with the 750. You get LED lighting, updated looks, but also Honda did change the characteristics with this engine, and it behaves a little bit differently. It actually like revs a little bit faster. It's more fun, according to Honda. But you know, I wouldn't kick the 700cc NC out of bed. I actually think that the other engine is fine. I don't think it needed an improvement, but they do this often with displacement now. They bump up the displacement, so it makes these older ones completely outdated, even though they're really not. So here's that frunk. I usually keep it open. I have bags, gloves. So that's where the battery is. And I run a little terminal here for my phone charging. That makes it much easier. But you can fit a full-size helmet in here. And yeah, the BMW Scarver had this. You could replace it with speakers and all of these accessories. This one, not so much. And this is the DCT version, so basically you turn it on, push the starter, it goes into neutral. People that are looking for some excitement, this is not it. This is not that type of bike. One of the improvements over the 700, at least for this one, is the fact that this bike has got a second balancer in the engine to smooth things out. So it is smoother than the 700. This is a little bit smoother in the engine department. Now I do have to say that if you are on the highway, I do notice vibrations coming through the handlebars and the foot pegs, and it's not like a bad buzziness, but it's just something that annoys me. Also, you know, they made this particular bike very tall, and that's a good thing. It's not tall like an Africa Twin. I actually thought the Africa Twin, the seating position, everything on it is better for my body, because I have long legs, so I don't really care too much. But I do like a taller bike, especially if you're going to deal with traffic on the highway, because you can see over most standard cars, but in SUVs you can't see. Nobody can see over those SUVs or vans. I got this $20 delivery. Let's go and get that delivered. Come on. You know, this is about time that we're getting into the holidays. I think next week is Thanksgiving. Another bad thing about the NCs is that this particular one, I don't know, the seat is just so uncomfortable. After about 100 miles, I found that this is the worst comfort I've ever had on a bike. And you know, normally I don't have much of an issue. So in the end, this bike is not for everybody. If your idea of getting a bike is for thrills and riding at high rates of speed, this is not it. This bike is good for people who want a reliable, easy to use bike, dependable, easy to work on. This guy's letting me through, which is nice. Thank you. And it is just simply a great bike. If your idea of having a bike is something you keep for a very long time, somebody that gets attached to bikes, you couldn't ask for a more dependable bike that's going to get 70 miles to the gallon out of a 700cc bike and will get you over 100,000 miles barely, like with barely any maintenance. Yeah, this bike is that type of bike. It's for cheapskates. It's for people who want to commute, who really use their bikes as cars. And they're much more popular in Europe, but you know, that actually counts as an advantage because you can get these things so cheap. You can get a late model NC750 with an improved LCD and connectivity and everything for like $6,000. These are about $5,000. The older ones, I mean, like I said, I bought them for $2,000, $1,500. An incredible value in motorcycling. Alright guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.